meeting minutes. Commissioner Archer's here. Okay. Good. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. Hope you had a good break. Welcome to our December 2nd meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. My name is Shelley Bueller, and I serve as chair of the commission alongside Commissioner Kevin Cook and Commissioner Bob Archer. Good morning.
Morning.
Madam Clerk, the first item, please.
Item 2, unfinished business. Number 1, consider approval of resolution number 2013-182, authorizing a cereal malt beverage license for Lake Shawnee Golf Management, LLC, doing business as Forbes Golf Course, located at 700 Cape Hart Road, including Sunday sales.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Knight, Parks and Recreation. This item was on a previous commission agenda in which I asked for it to be pulled. It's put back on here, and at the request of the commission, Austin Tillman, the general manager of Lake Shawnee Golf Management, is here as well to answer any questions you guys may have.
Okay. John, we had some discussion shortly before the meeting, but given the fact that we have not made any decisions, final decisions on Forbes, that there's always the possibility that he can reapply at any time during the year.
That is my understanding,
so
yes.
We don't necessarily need to approve this at this time.
Well, that is true. My point, I guess what was driving me was, his contract to operate Forbes ends at the end of this year, December 31st of this year.
Mm-hmm.
I have not renegotiated a new one. It is something we are considering changing the operations of. I did not want him to buy a $525 license if that was the
Sure.
case. But there are other options too.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have questions? Okay.
I mean, it really is the application of Mr. Tillman.
Mm-hmm.
If Mr. Tillman wishes to withdraw it, I mean, that would be his ability to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Morning, Commissioners. Yeah, I'd like to withdraw it if I could,
Yes.
and then maybe reapply if it comes down the line.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Motion to withdraw.
I would make the motion to withdraw the application for
There's a
this
motion
applicant.
by Commissioner Cook.
A second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. And thank you for being here this morning.
What about the refunding of the money?
We did not approve anything, so therefore no refunding, and he will reapply.
Okay.
Yeah. Since we did not approve, there will be no refund stipulation,
All right.
since we just pulled it. Yeah.
But it was my understanding that the fee has been paid in advance.
Has it been paid?
It has.
Yeah,
Oh,
so that
I
we
did
need
not
to make
realize
yes,
that.
Yes, that's why we need to make a provision to refund the fee, I think.
Thank you. So moved to refund. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you for catching that.
Item 3, consent agenda.
Are there questions on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
There's a motion by Commissioner Archer,
Second.
second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk. Number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Madam Chair, this morning we have no vouchers.
I was searching for them last night to review,
Oh,
and I
was
could
searching
not
again
find
this
them.
morning.
Yeah, again. Okay, thank you.
Item 2, there are no correction orders. Number 3, consider approval of resolution number 2013-183, authorizing the county clerk to cancel 2 checks.
Are there questions on these 2 checks?
Are we only canceling them, or we are not reissuing them?
Reissuing.
I move to cancel the 2 checks.
It's a motion by Commissioner Cook,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Item B, elections. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-575-2013 with No Wink LLC for poll pad software and related items at a cost of $118,270 in 2013, $19,000 in 2014, $34,255 in 2015, $15,255 in 2016, and $15,255 in 2017.
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Howell, Shawnee County Election Commissioner. What we've tried to do is show that there is some ongoing cost each year for licenses. So those are not, those expenses are basically for going forward as we're talking about out here. There is a licensing fee and some maintenance costs that are ongoing. We wanted to kind of explain that to you as part of the process. As you know, the Secretary of State's office, through their HAVA grant program, gave one of the largest awards this year to Shawnee County because they understood the need that we had and that we needed some capability to deal with some unusual situations that had occurred, as in the February election. We negotiated some contract that we believe softens the impact of 14, which is tough for us to really find much to do there. So we've tried to actually spend some money from this year's budget to help soften that impact. It reduces also future equipment purchase costs. Personally, I believe in trying to pay for things as go as much as you can. That's part of what we're trying to accomplish, to save the taxpayers some money in the future. And I also think that we owe the voters a more flexible and efficient capability than we've been able to offer in the past, such as we saw in the February election. So that's part of what we're trying to accomplish with this. Mark and I spent some time visiting with No Wink. We believe we've put together an agreement that is satisfactory, but also shows significant savings. They've put together, I believe, and based on our experience in visiting with them, significant savings for Shawnee County compared to a lot of other counties out there. So we're very happy with the result that we're bringing to you. And also, I do believe that the savings of whole book printing and employee time also will come close to initially offsetting the actual cost per year. So significant savings in that as well on an ongoing basis. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. But basically, we've put together what we believe is a fair contract, and we're excited about it.
Thank you very much. Are there questions on the contract? Mr. Archer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have a couple of questions. Good morning, Andrew. Good to see you. This contract calls for the elections office to purchase 120 Apple iPads.
We've actually purchased those as part of our original arrangement with the Secretary of State.
Okay.
Those are
How often are they used? What do we do with them when they're not in use?
those will be used, I would say, at least twice a year at a minimum, and then you could use them 3 or 4 times a year, depending if you have a special election or special situations. So those would be used during the election, but they're also used during advanced voting, so it's not just on election day. We'll
Okay.
also be using them advanced voting. And I do think that there is a possibility we could visit with the county about some other uses for them, but we've got to be careful how we arrange for that. I'm sure we can look at that in the future, but for security purposes.
Okay. It just seemed like, only to use them once or twice a year seemed high, but it would be used during the advanced voting process, which goes for several weeks, from what I recall. How do you explain what it does? If, I use the man on the street test. If somebody didn't know anything about your office, what does this do for the elections office that if we didn't have it, we couldn't do?
Well, probably the biggest single thing it does, and that's part of what, in having Wyandotte County come over and give their presentation, they use the same system in their county. And part of their presentation, well, part of the reason I had asked them to come over and give a presentation to us about how they used it in February, it gives us a lot better, it's scalable, it's more manageable, more flexible as it relates to, the mayor requested in February that we open 5 locations. We simply couldn't do it without this system. So it gives us that flexibility and speedy capability to move polling locations. and to communicate better with voters about that. There's a lot of capabilities, and again, I can't promise that we'll have them implemented immediately because it all takes time to put together, but it gives us a lot more flexibility. I would like to have been able to open 5 polling places in that primary, but I couldn't move them quick enough, and I couldn't move the data around quick enough. It also saves a lot of staff time in the office. We're not sitting there with bar scanners for weeks and people poring over pages, going through the poll books. You can upload that information either electronically or through the actual hooking the machines themselves up to the database. You can move your data around a lot quicker, saves a lot of staff time, and it's more accurate. So there's a lot of flexibility and capability built into that makes a big difference in the way the office is run. One of our biggest challenges, quite frankly, is after an election, getting all that data compiled in time to meet with commissioners and go through the final counts and be able to explain what happened. And so this actually helps compress that time frame so that we're not working till 2 and 3 in the morning trying to get everything prepared for canvass.
One more, if I
Yes.
may, Madam Chair. And you indicated you thought, due to paper savings and staff time and so on, that it was about a break-even proposition?
I think it could be more than that. I'm hesitant to promise more than that. I
Okay.
think it's significant. I think it gets close. And I will try to give you a little more information as we go forward and experience that. We'll try to give you a little more information and try to use that in future budget planning as well.
Well, and the other thing that you had indicated in your memorandum was that it would benefit us in that we could have a reduction in capital expenditure and the debt amount that we ultimately, what is that specifically?
Well, I guess, we have a lot of election equipment that we are trying to hang on to as long as we can, but it has to all be replaced at some point very soon. And it's my belief that if we can replace a little bit along as we can with cash, that we're saving indebtedness costs or other costs to the county, the sooner we can pay for it and get it implemented, the less cost overall that all the equipment will cost.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
There's a motion by Commissioner Archer,
Second.
second by Commissioner Cook. And I just have one question. Andrew, the amount of the HAVA grant was how much? Do you,
I believe it was
I know you had that on a past agenda, but
$28,740.
of the 118, or is this correct?
I think
Okay.
that's correct.
All right.
I believe that is correct.
All those in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Item C, planning, number 1, consider approval of home rule resolution number HR 2013-7, providing for the amendment of the zoning regulations of Shawnee County, Kansas, to incorporate a new provision governing special events.
Barry, before you get started, just to note that this is a home rule resolution, and so this is our first reading. Correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Barry Beagles, Shawnee County Planning Department. What I'm going to try to do is give you a high-level overview of the special event amendment process. There's a lot that went into this. It took over a year to give you a finished product, which is now before you for consideration. And I know that there's going to be a lot of details as a result of going through this that I'm going to just pass over for the sake of brevity. And I understand that there are those who are present who may wish to address those specific points. But my intent here today is to introduce why we went about this process and what we hope to accomplish with the special event amendment.
Barry, can I stop you right there?
Sure.
I need to ask, Rich, as far as opening the public hearing, do we open that today or on Thursday?
You can do both.
Okay, because I think we need to disclose ex parte
You
On
disclose
this?
ex parte at the end of the public hearing.
at the end of the public
And
hearing.
before it ends.
Okay.
Okay. So let me begin with a brief introduction. The amendment was initiated by the Shawnee County Planning Commission on August 12th, 2012 at the request of the Shawnee County Planning Department. A recent event drew attention to the fact that we had no mechanism within the zoning regulations dealing with temporary short-term land use activities. Based on the structure of the zoning regulations in its current form, it is based on permanent land uses. We've got major land use categories, be it agriculture, residential, office, commercial, industrial. We have zoning districts that define each of those major use group categories. and within each zoning district, it defines permanent permitted uses. We had no mechanism within the regulations currently dealing with temporary uses of land and how they should be accommodated. So it leaves uncertainty how the regulations apply, if at all, to such temporary land use activity. Well, identified as what we call special events, these are what we would commonly refer to as commercial activities that include concerts, festivals, rodeos, motorized events, fairs, carnivals, etc. And even though these events may be short-term, they can and often do have impacts that extend beyond the boundaries of the property and can have an impact on the provision of public services. And it is for this reason that a special event amendment was proposed. Examples of some impacts of a special event operation is that it can lead to traffic congestion and parking problems, can produce noise from various on-site activities, and have extended hours of operation that can be disruptive to neighboring property. So as not to limit the opportunity for special events, but to create an environment where they may be successful in locations that result in minimal to no impact, it is recommended that they be subject to a review process with criteria to minimize the possibility of conflict. One of the first things that we did in this process was to create a special event webpage, which was accessible through the Shawnee County Planning Department website. The purpose for this webpage was to give the public and interested parties information as to what this special event amendment was about, to announce upcoming meetings, as well as to provide all documents that are generated through this process, make them available through the website for download by anybody who's interested in this process. So as a result, all the documentation that you received as part of your agenda packet was made available to the public through this website. Okay. The first public hearing was held on the draft special event amendment on May 13th, 2013. There was considerable public testimony that was received at that time, and it was realized that no action would be taken at that point because of all the various issues that were raised. The Planning Commission deferred action for 3 months with specific instructions for staff to rework certain sections of the special event amendment. A second public hearing was held then on August 12th, 2013. It was still realized that there was more to this document than what could be adequately reviewed in the context of the Planning Commission public hearing process. So at the conclusion of the August 12th hearing, they continued it for another 3 months, but specifically with the intention of forming a working group of interested individuals who would want to sit down with the subcommittee of the Planning Commission to specifically review and discuss sections of the special event amendment. So as a result, a working group was assembled. 3 members of the Planning Commission were appointed as a subcommittee, which consisted of Brian Jakes, Pat Tryon, and Dave McPhee. And those 3 worked with the working group, which consisted generally of around 20 individuals, to work through at depth the special event amendment. First working group meeting was held on August 29th, 2013. And then a second working group meeting was held on September 12th, 2013. At the conclusion of the September 12th meeting, the subcommittee indicated that to the working group participants that the subcommittee was then going to take all the information that was shared, all the issues that were raised, and the subcommittee was then going to go ahead and review independently the document and offer a recommendation back to the full Planning Commission. So as a result, the Planning Commission subcommittee held 2 meetings of its own, specifically to evaluate all the comments that were generated through the working group meeting, and they concluded making a final recommendation to the Planning Commission, which was then considered on November 12th, 2013. At the November 12th meeting, the Planning Commission recommended unanimously the approval of the special event amendment with one minor revision that was made concerning administrative penalties. Otherwise, beyond that, the number of public comment that was received with regard to the document was greatly diminished over what it was through the working groups and the 2 previous Planning Commission public hearings. So we took that as an optimistic sign. Well, let me get into the proposal itself, and again, my attempt here is to do a high-level overview without going into much detail, but at least give you an idea of what the draft provides for. First of all, what are we talking about with regard to a special event? It is defined as a temporary short-term use of land or structure conducted on private property, not otherwise included as a permitted or accessory use by these regulations. So again, premise is that we're making accommodation for these temporary short-term activities. Attendance is a major factor in the evaluation and setting or identification of a proper special event type, which I will address here in a minute. But attendance would then include everything from spectators, participants, event management staff, vendors, and security. So anybody who would have any reason to be on the property would be counted in attendance. A general requirement applies to all special events, regardless of the event type, and they are that the maximum duration of a special event is 4 days, and you can have 2 similar events on the property within a calendar year. Beyond that, you can also have 2 non-similar events on the same property within the same calendar year. So basically what this is saying is that you can have 4 events on the same property within the same calendar year, which would represent 2 different types of special event activity. The maximum duration of any one event can not exceed 4 days. Okay. The heart of this proposal concerns the definition of 3 types of special events, which are distinguished primarily based on attendance. Each is defined as being open to the general public, which is a major qualifier for what constitutes a special event, primarily for entertainment or amusement, and would include such activities, again, as concerts, performance, festivals, fairs, carnivals, rodeos, off-road racing events, or similar public gatherings. And I want to draw attention to the fact that what defines a special event, again, is the fact that it is open to the general public, meaning and distinguishing it from a private affair, where somebody is having friends over on their property, where people arrive by invitation only. A garage sale, for example, on somebody's property, which is specific to that property, or an auction, which is specific to that property, or even fun nonprofit organizations that are conducting some type of event on their property would be excluded from being considered as a special event. So anything that is designed to draw the general public to the property, thus is considered to be a special event. So with regard to the 3 types of special events, there's a type 1, type 2, and type 3. It's very dramatic. Type 1 special event is intended to include those events where total attendance is less than 100 persons. Now, in order to be considered a type 1 event, it also means that it would exclude the use of sound amplification, could not last for more than 1 day, it cannot extend beyond the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and it would not include motorized events. If there is a type 1 event that would be less than 100 persons, but it would potentially use one of these exclusions, then we could consider it as a type 2 event, which goes through a more strenuous process of review. A type 2 event, therefore, is the same thing. It's open to the general public for a variety of different activities, but the total attendance does not exceed 400 persons, and it operates within the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then finally, a type 3 event is for any type of event for which attendance is anticipated to exceed 400 persons. Well, what is the procedure associated with these? Well, for any special event, it proceeds with a pre-application conference. This is the time for the applicant to come in and share with staff what their intentions are with regard to their proposal. So they would therefore have to indicate the scope, type, and nature of the activity, the location and size of the property, how parking is going to be handled, transportation and access, etc. At the conclusion of that meeting, then the planning director would be responsible for assigning the event type. So either a type 1, type 2, or type 3. If it is a type 1 event, it is not, because of the limited size of a type 1 event, it does not require the issuance of a special event permit. However, the applicant is required to sign an acknowledgement form indicating that they will conduct the type 1 event in compliance with the definition for a type 1 event, and otherwise that they would comply with the general requirements of the regulations, again, limiting it to only 2 times per year and no event exceeding 4 days in length. So a type 1 is would be fairly routine in order to be reviewed and approved. So now we step into a type 2 event. Again, these are for events that would attract up to 400 individuals. A type 2 event is subject to review and approval by the planning director following review and comment by the sheriff's office, the applicable fire department, public works, and health agency. Special events shall be approved with or without conditions if found to be compliant with performance standards which are contained within the regulations, and I'll address those in just a moment. So if they meet all the 10 conditions, as for example would apply to a type 2 event, then it's automatic. The type 2 event would be approved. If, however, they cannot comply with each and every performance standard, then the permit shall be denied. Now, at that point, the applicant has the opportunity to file for a type 3 event, which goes through, yet again, a little bit more strenuous process. Denials of a type 2 event, however, can be appealed to the Planning Commission for formal review and determination. Neighboring property owners are notified of this proposal after an event is approved, so that way they are aware of an upcoming event and activity. But all the issues that are associated with the event, in terms of parking, traffic, lighting, etc., are all addressed through the performance standards and must be satisfied in order for the special event permit to be approved. Okay, finally, a type 3 event. Again, based upon its size, it's subject to now a public hearing process that has to be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission. It again involves the involvement of the Sheriff's Office, the applicable fire district, Public Works, and the Health Agency. There is notification of property owners within a 1,000-foot radius. They have the right to come before the Planning Commission, which would hold a public hearing on the proposal and decide whether to grant a special event permit with or without conditions. If the special event permit is denied, the applicant has the ability to appeal the denial to the County Commission. Also, if owners of 20% of the land area required to be notified are dissatisfied with the determination of the Planning Commission, that also, therefore, can then be appealed to the County Commission. And then the County Commission has its normal rights to either approve the proposal with or without conditions or deny the special event permit. Okay, I'm flying through this, I know. So what typically are the application requirements associated with this? Again, type 2 and type 3 events are the only two events that require the approval of a special event permit, and therefore there is a specific set of requirements that apply. A complete application consists of an application form, obviously, which is accompanied by verification that the ownership of the property has granted permission, or that they have received the permission of the property owner. There's verification that all property taxes are current and up to date. If they're in arrears, we're not going to process their application until they pay their taxes. They have to submit a written plan of operation which details the scope of the activity, setting the days and hours of operation, the full scope of what the special event is. They would submit a detailed site plan that lays out on the property where all activities, parking, etc. would take place. They have to submit a public safety plan. This was a specific recommendation to the Sheriff's Office, and one that was championed by the Planning Commission, and that is that we need to build into a special event public safety. So we need to be considering fire and sheriff access and how they can respond to emergency situations at a special event. So a public safety plan has to be submitted, reviewed, and approved. They have to submit a security deposit. Basically, it's a pledge or a guarantee that they will remain compliant with the terms and conditions of the special event, and that they will reclaim the property in an acceptable manner. For a type 2 event, they have to submit a special event checklist, which is based on the performance standards, showing that they are compliant with each of the performance standards. They have to designate a contact person, and then finally pay the appropriate filing fee. Okay, there are two basic sets of evaluation factors that are used to look at a special event, be it a type 2 or type 3. There are performance standards and evaluation criteria that provide a consistent, effective, and objective basis for the evaluation of proposals. Performance standards. Type 2 and type 3 events shall comply with specific performance standards to reduce possible detrimental effects and promote public safety. There are 10 performance standards that apply to type 2 and type 3 events, and then there are 2 additional standards that apply to type 3 events concerning the impact on neighboring property, and for the first time, overnight camping is permitted only as a type 3 event. For a performance standard, it is a minimum requirement, and therefore it has to be met regardless of the type of the event. So if somebody is not able to satisfy each of the 10 different standards, be it traffic, setback, parking, site triangle, etc., then it's non-compliant. So for a type 2 event, they have to satisfy, or for a type 3 event, they have to satisfy each of those performance standards as set forth in the draft regulation. Now, there is also additional criteria that is provided, which are standards of measurement by which to evaluate a proposal and are used to establish conditions. And they are set forth in the regulations as well. And finally, just to kind of wrap it up, the special event amendment does include enforcement procedures, and it reinforces the fact that the special event regulations are intended to apply to events that are temporary in nature. They have a designated expiration date. They do not run with the land. A special event is not transferable to any other entity, and that the event permit must be posted on site. The organizer is responsible for complying with the conditions of the permit, and there is the authority to revoke the permit if it is found that they are operating in non-compliance or that it would endanger the health, safety, and welfare of event patrons. The event organizer must maintain public liability insurance during the time of the operation of the event, and they must also pay a security deposit that I referenced earlier. And again, that's a pledge or a guarantee to assure that they will remain compliant with the regulations, as well as provide for proper reclamation at the conclusion of the event. Okay, there's your high-level review. I didn't spend any time getting into any specific details that were brought out throughout the public hearing process, because I know that there will be those who will bring them forward. But are there any questions of the commissions at this point?
Commissioners?
No.
Barry, I have one. On the permit procedure, for type 2, there isn't a public hearing. For type 3, there is. So those residents for a type 2 event would be notified after.
They would be notified only if a special event permit is approved.
Is approved. But then for a type 3, there is the public hearing and public notification that
Right.
before that application is approved.
And that's primarily based upon the scaled size, because it's an event that's intended to attract well over 400 people.
Okay.
And therefore
Okay.
involved.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Archer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Beagle, make sure I understand, a family reunion, a wedding reception, a graduation ceremony, these types of events would not be covered under these provisions?
That is correct.
That is correct, okay. How many of these events do you anticipate occurring?
It is difficult to indicate. We know that there have been events that occurred in the past for which we have had no knowledge. There was no prior permission that was sought by our office. So at this point, I can't really tell you how many potential special events we may encounter.
Do you have an educated guess based on past experience?
We may see, I would say, maybe 2 or 4 within a year.
2 to 4?
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
At this time, we'll open it up for public comment, if you want to make a comment. Oh.
Thank you. My name's Ed Peck, 3736 Southeast Stubbs Road, Tecumseh. I want to commend Barry for the work that he has done on this document, because it took a lot of work. There was nothing in the beginning, and Barry has created, with his staff and commissioners, has created a document here that I think will be beneficial not only to the Planning Commission. They'll have the opportunity then to be able to judge and engage and regulate different events that might occur. I don't know that you folks have the advantage that I have here of having a copy of this document. I did serve on the subcommittee as an interested party. But in my opinion, one of the most important parts of this document is, and if you will permit me to read this, protect nearby property owners, residents, businesses from special events which may be disruptive, obnoxious, unsafe, or inappropriate given site conditions to adjoining landowners. To me, I think this is one of the intents of the county commission when they asked that this document be created, and that was to give the assurance to all residents in Shawnee County that they would have some protection of special events, of whatever kind they might be. The one major exception that I have that, and I know that Barry could not point them all out here in this quick slide that he had, but one of the objections that I have, and that was raised I think a couple of times at the subcommittee meetings, and it is under the performance standards. And under the performance standards, there is the provision to have a setback. The original document that was drafted in the very beginning called for a minimum of 50 feet setback from an event that might be adjoining to a roadway or to a property line. It was reduced to 30 feet. So I could not quite understand if the document is intended to protect adjoining property owners, why then would that restriction or that setback be dropped from 50 feet to 30 feet? And honestly, I never received a good answer to that, my question about that. But I think it is important that you folks as county commissioners realize that this document is going to be the protection tool for all Shawnee County residents that may have an event take place next or adjoining to them. It was my suggestion at the last meeting that at minimum be taken back from the 30 feet back to the 50 feet. I would like to have seen it being further than that, but only be applicable to those events that were that had motorized vehicles in it and or firearms, because they'll be the most disruptive to adjoining property owners. As it stands now, 30 feet is approximately the distance of this length of this room. So we're saying that we could have motorized vehicles, whatever they might be, whether they're quads, whether they're dirt bikes, whatever it might be, running at the end back here, and my property line is here. That seems unreasonable to me. And so that is my main objection. There's a few other minor things, but overall this is a pretty good document. But that is my main objection, that setback line needs to be greater than 30 feet to protect the adjoining property owners from having their lives disrupted, because it's going to happen. And I will assure you that there are event promoters that really don't care whether it's on the property line, 30 feet, or whatever it might be. They're not worried about how the neighbors are going to be affected. So it concludes my comments, and I would stand for any questions.
Questions? No? Okay,
Thank you very much.
Barry, where'd you go? There you are, right in front of me. When in the course of discussion did it change from 50 to 30?
It was at the subcommittee meeting, following the working group discussions.
So pretty early then in the conversation, or was it towards the end of the conversation?
It was towards the end of the process.
Okay.
I would like to say that the 50%, the 50-foot setback was based upon a specific mathematical formula, that I could pull out an algorithm and that would say, okay, here's why it ended up being 50 feet. What we tried to do was, in the context of a neighborhood which could be a farm community or it could be a more densely knit residential neighborhood, is come up with some kind of minimum spatial buffer that would have to be observed. Not that that spatial buffer would address everything from sound or any other potential impacts generated by the use, but at least it would provide some sense of buffer or separation between that activity and that neighboring property. And so originally it came up as 50 feet. During the course of review, the subcommittee, if I can recall specifically the discussion, thought that, well, you know, since it is not designed necessarily to retard the advance of noise that could be generated on site and perceived by a neighboring property, you know, a 50-foot setback takes an awful lot of real estate out of consideration with regard to a proposal, and therefore maybe a more realistic setback would be 30 feet, which would be consistent with the setback requirement otherwise for structures within the unincorporated area. They're subject to a 30-foot setback. And therefore thought, well, okay, now we're being consistent with regard to normally what would be our setback requirements.
Okay. Commissioner Archer?
So 30 feet wasn't developed by a scientific algorithm either.
Correct.
That was just, I guess, I tend to agree with Mr. Pack. I think 30 feet is way too close for an event, and I'm looking at section 2A about impact on neighboring properties as far as enjoyment of their property, value of the adjacent property, and so on. And I think 50 feet is reasonable. I don't think 30 feet is, but that's just me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Because in the document, at least the one I'm looking at, it has 50 and then it's struck through and
That's
then,
right.
and then 30.
I apologize, the resolution has been revised.
Has it?
No.
And
There were actually 4 different documents. I think there was an April document, a November
Yeah.
document, a draft document, a final document, 160 pages of documentation
Yes.
on this, and I thought the Internal Revenue Code was tedious. But anyway, yes, Madam Chair, I think
Yeah.
in the final document,
Right.
50 was struck and then
Okay.
went to 30.
And I want to stress that this resolution is only covering unincorporated areas of Shawnee County,
correct.
not within the city limits of Topeka,
Correct.
any of the other
Good point.
cities, Rossville, Silver Lake, Auburn,
Correct.
Willard, nothing, okay. All right. Well, this is our first reading, so we will hear take action on Thursday. Since this is our first reading, we will then put it on the agenda and take action this Thursday. Yes. Thank you.
Item D, Weed Department. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C 576, 2013 with the Kansas Department of Transportation for noxious weed control, and consider request to pay an invoice in the amount of $5,419.78 to Doug Richard Body Shop for the repair of a Weed Department vehicle.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Cavis from your Shawnee County Weed Department. These are really 2 separate items. The first item, the KDOT contract, is a contract that we've had with the state for more than 2 decades. It's where our crews do the work on their property to make sure that KDOT is compliant with the noxious weed law. And it works well, and I appreciate your approval.
We've had this contract in place for a number of years, correct?
Over 20 years.
Over 20.
Motion to approve the contract with KDOT.
So motion to approve by
Second.
Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
The second item is a vehicle that's in our fleet that was damaged this summer in an accident. It was unmobile. It was in our lot. I had 3 local companies come by and evaluate it and provide bids on its repair. The low bid was from Doug Rickert Pontiac Body Shop for $33,920.97. After they tore into the vehicle, they found many more problems, and the final bill was over the $5,000 threshold, and that's why it's here today. The work has been completed and the truck is returned.
I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure.
Second.
It's motion by Commissioner Archer, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item E, Information Technology. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C 573, 2013 with Highland Software for annual maintenance for the Sheriff's Office on-base imaging system in an amount of $4,400.
Good morning, Commissioners. Pat Oplander with the Information Technology Department. This item is for the renewal of the annual maintenance for the on-base imaging system. This system is used in the Sheriff's Office to archive offense reports. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have at this point.
Thank you, Pat. I'll move approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks.
Item F, Public Works Solid Waste. Number 1, consider approval of a request to solicit bids to televise, inspect, clean, and GIS map Sherwood Lake sanitary sewer collection system areas A, B, C, and D.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Block with Public Works and Solid Waste. This item is a Public Works item. As you're aware, Shawnee County owns the Sherwood wastewater sewer system out in the southwest part of the county and in the southwest part of the city. We, as part of the ongoing maintenance in an attempt to ultimately develop a long-term capital improvements program for the system, we are requesting to go ahead and solicit bids to have that system, the main portion around right now of the lake, that's the older part of the system, have it televised and cleaned and have all that information put into a GIS mapping system in which we can identify needed repairs and get those implemented into our capital improvements program so that we can continue on with long-term maintenance. Since I've been with the county, we have not done any type of work like this, and I'm not sure if and when any type of work like this has been completed prior to my coming to the county, but it is something I strongly believe needs to be done in the attempt to prevent major repairs occurring or needing to be done on an emergency basis in the future. If it is approved, we would look to take bids shortly after the new year. Is our anticipation that the cost to do this type of work would be in the $160,000 to $170,000 range, and the fees to pay for this work would come from the Sherwood Regional Sewer District account, which is a user fee based account and is not funded by tax dollars. So if there's any questions regarding this, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Tom. Are there questions? No. Move approval of the request. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Number 2, consider authorization and execution of contract C-577-2013 partnership agreement with USD 437 for the enhancement and maintenance of the landscaping within the roundabout at Southwest 53rd and Wanamaker Road at an additional cost of $810.50 and long-term savings due to the shared maintenance responsibilities.
Commissioners, Tom Block again with Public Works Solid Waste. This too is a Public Works item, and as you know, the intersection at 53rd and Wanamaker, we installed or constructed a roundabout that intersection a few years ago. And on those types of projects, typically when we get away, from, I guess, outside the city limits a little ways, it's been our practice to put in the landscaping is what's called like a xeriscape. Essentially, a xeriscape is maybe some decorative rock, plantings that require very little water to sustain themselves. And that's what we did at this particular intersection. Here earlier this year, USD 437 had contacted us with a proposal to look into entering into a partnership agreement at this particular roundabout. And the reasoning that they were interested in this roundabout is twofold. That roundabout is located as kind of an entrance or gateway to their administrative buildings, in which they have many visitors, potential teaching candidates that come visit, and they would like this particular roundabout to have enhanced vegetation. In doing so, which would require the installation of some additional plantings. And in doing so, and in exchange, they also would like to use this roundabout with the vegetation as an opportunity to utilize for some of their classwork, in which they can bring some of their students out to teach them about vegetation, about plantings,
how to maintain such types of things. So we worked with the county council's office to develop an agreement, our partnership agreement, along with a volunteer waiver and release form in the event if the student groups were going to do this. And we've come up with an agreement that we believe is satisfactory to all of us. And what we would initially do is the cost of the new plantings would be roughly $1,600, a little over $1,600. We would split those costs 50-50. So our amount would be $810.50, and then the school district would pay the other half. And then they would then do the maintenance of these plantings essentially throughout the school year, from September through the end of May, where Public Works Department would then maintain them through the summer months. We believe it's a win-win for both entities. I would recommend it be approved. I also, if you have any questions, I'm here to stand for questions, but also have Rich Jones from USD 437, their Director of Facilities, here, in case you have any specific questions regarding their intentions. So if there's any questions, I'd like to try to answer them.
Thank you, Tom.
Madam Chair?
Other questions of the commission? Yes.
You know, Tom, I think this is a great public partnership with the school district. This is a great use for roundabouts. I would encourage maybe John Knight to look into this with some of our roundabouts that we're maintaining through the park system, if we can incorporate that with the 501 school district. And so I'm very excited about this, and kudos to you for being able to put this together.
And the willingness of Auburn Washburn School District to work with us, yes, I agree. Yeah.
Is that a motion?
Commissioners?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here this morning, Mr. Jones.
Item G, Commission, number 1, consider canceling the December 26th Commission meeting.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Administrative communications.
Any administrative communications today? No? All right. Oh, eager to get back to work on this Monday, aren't you?
Catch up.
Yeah. Next item, please.
Executive sessions.
Is there a need? Mr. Eckert? No? No, we are adjourned.